Anti-terror operations underway in Brussels. At least 6 suspects under arrest. CCTV's Kate Parkinson is in Brussels with all of the developments. Kate, what can you tell us?
Well, absolutely some big news tonight, Mike. We have heard from authorities here in Brussels that they have arrested 6 individuals who they say are directly connected to Tuesday's attacks on the airport and the subway. What we don't know is whether these 6 individuals include 2 key suspects that we know they were looking for, those being the so-called man in white, this individual who was seen at the airport, who is believed to have wheeled explosives in to the departure hall and then fled the building before the bombs exploded. And then we also heard today that there was potentially a second bomber involved in the metro attack who could also be on the run. So these were 2 key suspects that the police were looking for. We don't know at this stage whether the 6 arrests tonight included those 2 individuals, but it is certainly a major development. In other news, we have heard from French authorities this evening that they have made an arrest in the suburbs of Paris, a man that they say was in the, quote, advanced stages of planning an attack. Now, the French authorities, it's important to point out, are not saying whether this arrest was linked to the Brussels attacks or indeed to the Paris attacks in November or last January, but it is still a major development and an indication of the extent that the security services are taking, the measures that they're taking to prevent further attacks from taking place. Meanwhile, some harrowing footage has emerged from the airport, taken very shortly after the 2 bombs went off. The footage was filmed by a taxi driver who was parked outside the airport. When he heard the explosions, he rushed inside looking for his son. Let's take a look at my report, but before we do, just be aware that it does contain some images that some viewers may find distressing. It's a scene of total devastation. There are bodies buried under the rubble. And the sounds of people screaming, the wounded crying out for help. The taxi driver who filmed this didn't find his son inside the airport, but they were reunited later. Others have not been so lucky. Relatives and friends of those still missing since the explosions have been posting pictures on social media, desperately trying to trace their loved ones. The Belgian Prime Minister, Charles Michel, said their wait must be agonising as he paid tribute to the victims and their families.
We think about the children who have lost their papa or their mama. We think about the families torn apart. We think about those who have lost their partner, a friend, a loved one violently, unfairly and cruelly taken away. We also think about the women and men injured, for most of them seriously wounded, for all those who will carry permanent injuries in their flesh and in their heart. We also think about the families who have waited or are still waiting anxiously for some news of their loved ones.
The names of the 31 people killed in the attacks have not yet been officially announced. Authorities have asked for time to identify the victims. The process is slow, they say, because some of the bodies are in such poor condition, a detail that only adds to the distress. Well, Brussels is still observing, actually Belgium, I should say, is still observing 3 days of national mourning. You can probably see behind me the candles and flowers that have been laid out in tribute. You can probably also see the flags. Now, this really reflects what a multicultural city Brussels is, and actually we do know that among the dead and the wounded, some 40 nationalities are represented, and that really does reflect how far-reaching the devastating effect of these attacks was.